Freedom Flotilla. Again, we ran into the problem of fundraising. Months and months of trying to fundraise to get the ships that we needed. We thought the minimum we would need is 3 ships. Of course, we would like a lot more, but again, we don't have these kinds of resources, so if we could get together at least 3 ships, 1 cargo ship and 2 passenger boats. A cargo ship so we could start taking in the supplies that Palestinians wanted and needed in Gaza, and so that we could also export products from Gaza. And the passenger ships so we could take people, and that would really form the protection. We thought it was protection when you have people that have their communities behind them. These would be protection for the cargo ship. Come the winter of 2009, we still didn't have the money for those boats. But what happened is we had a Turkish organization called IHH that said that they will join us. IHH is a huge human rights and humanitarian organization that works in 120 countries around the world. And they pledged vessels to our flotilla. Then within the next couple of months, 3 more organizations joined us. Small but determined activist organizations in Greece, in Sweden, and on a European level. And in the spring of 2010, we announced the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, and in May of 2010, we set sail. I think most of you have heard in one form or another what happened to that flotilla. I was on one of the vessels, not the big one called Mani Marmara. Well, I was on it, but then I transferred to another one. I transferred to an American flag boat called the Challenger 1. We were 15 people on that boat, 5 of us American citizens, and we sailed very close to the flagship, the Mani Marmara. We were 6 vessels, 3 cargo ships, 3 passenger ships. We had originally intended to be 9, but through various forms of sabotage, 2 boats were not able to make it, and 1 was delayed. 1 vessel that ended up, it was 5 days behind us, and that boat, that vessel, it was a cargo ship we called the MV Rachel Corrie. Unfortunately, it did not sail with the main flotilla that went in. So we were 6 vessels on that night. And in the middle of the night, the Israeli Navy contacted us via the VHF radio that we have on all vessels. They called on us to identify ourselves, which we did. And then they issued a warning. They told us that the area we were navigating into was an area of hostilities. We were not going to be allowed to enter, and they demanded that we turn around. Now, I responded on behalf of the entire flotilla, saying that we are unarmed civilians. We're only carrying humanitarian aid headed for the Gaza Strip. We do not constitute any kind of threat to the State of Israel or its armed forces, and therefore we called upon them not to use any violence against us. They repeated their threat a number of times, eventually saying that they were willing to use all force necessary to keep us out of the Gaza Strip. And I just kept repeating that we are unarmed civilians. Don't use force against us. Then for the next about 2 hours, we didn't hear any more from them. We kept sailing. We slowed our pace a little bit, but we kept sailing. Then at around 4 o'clock in the morning, our colleague that was on watch yelled to the rest of us that they're coming. We had been communications were jammed. We had one photojournalist on board that tried to send her photos before our boat was invaded, but she wasn't able to. Again, the satellite communications were not working. And the Israeli Zodiacs caught up to our boats. Masked soldiers, armed, jumped on our boat, and we tried to use our bodies to prevent them from getting on, saying this is an American vessel, we are unarmed, stay away, get away from our boats. And they just knocked people down as they made their way onto the ship. Again, we tried to use our bodies to prevent them from getting inside the ship. I held on to the ladder that led up to the flybridge where our captain was, captaining the vessel. And I was pulled down and stomped on, my head pressed to the ground as they tried to tie my hands behind my back. And the first thing they went after was our communication. Any device that we had that could communicate or record, our cameras, our tape recorders, our phones, were all taken away. It took about 10 minutes for them to overtake our vessel. And when they had all gathered us in one room after they had untied us, after they had taken the bags off, I had a bag put over my head, and other colleagues had different things done to them. One girl had her face bloody. She was shot in the face with it was actually a paintball pellet, but it definitely bloodied her face. They gathered us all in one room, and then they had their video camera, and they were filming what they wanted to film. Was us sitting nicely, them letting us drink water, them speaking kindly to us. But our communication equipment, our recordings of what happened, we never got back. And we still, to this day, 4 months later, we don't have it. And it's not that we want our equipment back, laptops, phones, cameras, but that electronic equipment contains vital evidence if we are ever going to get to the truth of what really happened that night. They have been holding on to vital evidence, tampering with evidence. And what has the United States that had one of its vessels and its citizens attacked done about it? Nothing. Nothing from the U.S. State Department. Except occasional emails telling me that I will get my stuff back soon. And it's been over 4 months already. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to, not only was an American vessel attacked, American citizens attacked, but also an American citizen was killed. Of our 9 colleagues that were killed that evening, one was an American citizen, 19-year-old Dugan, who had planned to go to medical school this fall. He was shot 5 times, 4 in the back. So he couldn't have been attacking Israeli soldiers if he was shot in the back. And 1 bullet in his face at point-blank range. This is the result of an autopsy that was done, and this is also what the UN fact-finding mission concluded in their report. We began calling for an independent investigation, and Israel claimed that they weren't going to have any international body investigate them. No one was going to talk to their soldiers. They want to conduct their own investigation. But we pushed for an international investigation, and the UN Human Rights Council did commission a 3-person panel of renowned international jurists that did interview witnesses. They conducted about 112 interviews, looked at all evidence available. Of course, they didn't have our footage that Israel wouldn't release, and they didn't have the cooperation of the Israeli government at all. Again, Israel saying that they are perfectly capable of investigating themselves. And maybe tonight we'll hear a little bit from Cindy about what this kind of investigation that they carried out as to the killing of Rachel Corrie, what that looks